What's that?
Our new Space Coast Credit Union watchdog.
Watchdog.
The financial products and services you want, plus the protection you need. Space Coast Credit Union. Your life, your financial watchdog.
It's the Dolphins bye week, and that's a good thing. We could all use the break. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I am your host, Chris Perkins, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Miami Dolphins columnist. That is Dave Hyde, your South Florida Sun Sentinel columnist. Hyde, say hello to the folks. Do you have any bye week plans that aren't Florida Panthers related, Dave Hyde?
I was going to say, I've got this celebration hangover from 2 nights with the Panthers. And so, no, nothing special, especially as we were talking before coming on the air. This hurricane's coming at part of Florida. It looks like we're going to be spared. But I don't think we'll be talking about the big parties we're going to be having in South Florida. Will we, Perk?
No. Perk learned a lesson about that earlier today on a different radio show. A lack of audience awareness. So I'll get that corrected here. In the meantime, we welcome all of our viewers. We invite you guys to leave a thought, an idea, a comment in our live chat, which is becoming the best place to hear intelligent Dolphins talk. Also, we invite you to vote in our weekly Dolphins poll on sunsentinel.com. This week's question: what do you think of quarterback Tyler Snoop Huntley after 2 starts? Also, we want you to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Fans Flash, by using the QR code that's shown on your screen. So, look, that's all our official business. Let's get down to Dolphins business. Dolphins 2-3 at the bye. They did not look good in last week's 15-10 win at New England. But hey, it's better to win that game than to lose that game, right? So, look, it's the AFC East is not a good division, right? Buffalo is at 3-2. They've lost back-to-back games. All of a sudden, they can't protect Josh Allen. The Jets are 2-3, tied with the Dolphins in second place, but they just fired their coach. The Dolphins are on a roll, baby. They just coming off a victory. So how about that? The Patriots 1-4, awful, but they could still play the spoiler. Anything is possible, as we like to say around here. There's an ocean of possibilities. Let's dive in. So, Dave, Tua, this is the main topic around the Dolphins right now. Tua and the quarterback situation. The soonest that he can start practicing is 2 weeks from today, October 23rd. He can come back October 27th for the Arizona game. I think he should come back. If he's medically cleared, I think Tua should come back. He should play. I'm not too worried about the medical things because to me, I haven't seen any clear lines drawn between concussions and CTE. We've seen lines drawn between head injury or repeated blows to the head and CTE, not necessarily concussions. Do you agree with that point of view, Dave? Should Tua be a little more cautious and think big picture long term?
Well, look, this is his decision. The doctors tell him he's ready to come back. He comes back if he wants to, and all signs are that he does want to come back, and he'll be coming back for the Arizona game. Let's not I don't think anybody's pretending though that there's a danger to him playing. Now, where the line is, I have no idea because when I've talked to neurologists, they don't seem to know where the line is of how many concussions or how bad the concussions are or or should he come back or not? Look, this he's going to talk to the best doctors he can find, and him and his family are going to talk, and this is completely his decision, and on some level the team's decision as well. And don't think the NFL is not involved in this. I'm sure they have his medical records and are shown to neurologists up there too, because yeah, he's become the face of concussions, and you got all sorts of liability issues and PR issues revolving around this, in addition to the simple football issues with the Dolphins. So, but bottom line, if he wants to come back, doctors say he can come back. I don't. I have no medical records in this, and anybody saying no, he shouldn't come back really doesn't know, or should come back, has no idea what they're talking about.
Right. So we're going to progress. Because we have no idea, but we're going to delve further into this, Dave Hyde. In the meantime, we're going to say what's up to Peter McDowell, Rob, Matt Newton, AV, who else? Carl Becker, Jorge Gross, Ender Fireplays, YZ, Roger Ullman, J1364, Juan Pablo Barbuth. Welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining the show. Hyde, Rob, we'll get back to to Tua in a second, but this is kind of on it. Rob says we could easily be 0-5, but we are 2-3. There's hope. Bye week to sort the problem, some injuries to heal, Beckham to grow stronger, Tua to return. Are any of those on their own significant enough, or do they all need to work together with something else? Tua's return, OBJ getting better, the injuries, or is there still more needed after all of that?
Well, there's more needed, but that's right. That's the right idea the Dolphins have to take. They're 2-3. Their season isn't sunk. They can pull themselves right back into everything in the next 3 weeks or so. They probably do, assuming 10 wins gets to the playoffs, maybe 9 wins in today's world, but let's say 10 wins, they have to go, 8-4. Is my math right there? No, that'd be 11 wins. So 7-5, 7-5. No, 8-4, right? 2 wins.
8-4.
Carry the 1. 2, yeah, that's
right.
So, can they do it? Yeah, sure. Look, you saw at the end of the game a template maybe for how to play until Tua comes back. But that, which means one more game at Indianapolis. But that's an important game. 3-3 or 2-4, just like this week, 2-3 or 1-4. The concern is it's the same story whether they win or lose, which is mistakes, not scoring on offense, holding penalties, pre-snap motion penalties. You throw on the special teams just meltdown in the first half against New England. There's a lot of issues that come with undisciplined or teams that just, I don't know whether in practice they're not paying attention to detail or what. Right. But right. This isn't, after 5 games, you're seeing a lot of the same themes come in, whether they win or lose, and they aren't good themes.
Yeah, you're right. Matt Newton says, is it me, or does it seem like the NFL universe is opening a path for the Dolphins to get back in the division race? The Jets and Bills are imploding before our eyes. AV says McD finally realized he had a tight end on his roster. He finally realized you could run the ball. If only he could hold players accountable for their lack of discipline. Here's my question to you, Dave Hyde, because I like what both of them have to say there, Matt Newton and AV. Didn't the Dolphins come up with a blueprint? The 41 carries, that is good. The 193 yards rushing, that's good. Throwing to Jonnu Smith, that's good. Those are things that could help you win in December and January. Those are things that could help you take pressure off of Tua. Those are things that translate in cold weather games. We saw some really good things out of that sloppy victory. I hope that they stick with Mike McDaniel, and I hope that he carries these strategic, philosophical lessons throughout the season. Do you think that that'll happen, Hyde?
Do you trust that they can run the ball as well as they did Sunday? It was one final really physical drive at the end of the game, where they, took control of everything. And so, you look around the league. Baltimore had 14 of the 30 first downs against Cincinnati in the fourth quarter. You saw Dallas come back in the fourth quarter. Right now, teams, especially against defenses that don't have everything settled, are coming back in the fourth quarter. That's the story of the NFL, isn't it? One score game either way and a play. So is this the template for the Dolphins? I think it is without Tua, because why pile everything on Tyler Huntley? Why, but do you trust the offensive line that even they said, we don't care if our interior of our line is any good? We'll see. We'll see whether they can do it when teams are looking a little more for that.
And Hyde, from a football standpoint, the same problems are going to exist when Tua comes back, meaning teams are going to play the two deep safeties, and they're going to have a hard time getting the ball down the field to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. That's why I say the tight end could help, and the run game could help. And look, if they're playing that soft 7-man front, pound the ball, make them, we're going to now look. A big part of this is you were playing New England. I'm not sure how many teams the Dolphins would have beaten on Sunday. It's a good thing they were playing New England, but New England does have a respectable defense. No, the Dolphins aren't going to run it 41 times every week. No, they aren't going to gain 193 yards per week, but the commitment to the run gives you a chance to make them drop a safety down in the box. Now they're playing the 8-man front. They can't double both Tyreek and Waddle. Now you're more easily able to go over the top with that deep pass, with what you eat on. That's your bread and butter right there. But to me, hopefully you have discovered a better way to set up the approach to that bread and butter with the tight end, with a commitment to the run. Sometimes you're only going to average 3.5 yards a carry. But look, along with seeing Raheem Mostert running that outside zone, we also saw the rookie Jalen Wright running between the tackles, right? So that's something else that, again, it's fortunate that they were playing such a bad team, but I do see things to build on with or without Tua out there in the lineup. And really, I'm taking that as a positive from the game. Yes, they had all those penalties. Yes, they looked like crap out there. But it was good that they committed to the run, and I think they discovered some things offensively, Hyde.
Yeah, that we'll see coming up. Well, we know how Mike McDaniel likes to play. To me, this win and this how they won is only significant if they go out and can carry it forward with another win, coming up in Indianapolis, or at least play well. The question is, do they see it as a template? And in the NFL in general, they don't like to run. Most teams don't like to run. Look at New England. They're playing a career backup, Jacoby Brissett. They averaged 7.9 yards a carry against the Dolphins.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've ever seen that in a game.
Yeah.
And they only ran the ball 19 times, and they had Jacoby Brissett pass 34 times. I was sitting there thinking, what game is their coaching staff watching that they keep throwing Jacoby Brissett? Okay, so I only point that out. First of all, okay, there's another. It's like whack-a-mole with the Dolphins this year. There's an issue that's popped up they got to take care of. But I bring that up because the Dolphins have been something similar in that we know how Mike McDaniel likes to pass, and for good reason. You know where the strength of the team is the speed at receiver and Tua getting the ball out. But you don't have them right now. And this would be a time to, as you say, I don't disagree with you, lean on this running game. I just not sure this offensive line is good enough to lean on it to the degree that it can take over games.
Yeah, and that's a good point. That how good is this offensive line? Again, I do think that New England has a decent defense. It's not it's not Kansas City or anything like that, but it's a decent defense. This was a good start for the Dolphins. I'll say that. Yeah. This. I mean,
we talk about the Dolphins' injuries. New England was without their best linebacker in Bentley, and their two safeties who might be the best two safeties in football. They're right up there. And so, this was a good game, especially as the fourth quarter rolls on to try to pound the ball. And to the Dolphins' credit, they did.
Richard Keys asked this: why are other quarterbacks allowed to return right after being concussed, and Tua is held out weeks? Looks like the Dolphins are being targeted. That's kind of a complex thing. I know people saw Josh Allen slam his head against the turf, and there have been other incidents. Tua striking that fencing pose, having his incidents happen on Thursday Night Football twice. There are a lot of factors that go into Tua's and the repeated concussions. Yes, part of it is PR and part of it is image, but a large part of it is Tua's health and the unknown still about concussions. Hyde, do you think the Dolphins are being targeted here for any reason? I mean, they didn't force Tua. The league didn't force Tua to go on injured reserve, and the league has said it will not be in the decision whether Tua returns and when he returns. So to just kind of put a bow on this segment about Tua, do you think the Dolphins are being targeted in any way regarding Tua and his concussions?
Well, let's start here. The first time this became a national issue was Tua against Buffalo.
Right.
He collapsed on the field. He's shaking his head, and that was at halftime. He comes back, he plays, no problem. Okay, and so that was a similar situation to Josh Allen. The neurologist at the game said he doesn't have a concussion. Tua came in holding his back, saying it was his back, which,
right.
I mean, and then the following Thursday is when he had his first official concussion with the fencing pose and all that. So, Dolphin fans get very defensive on this, and on some level, what you found out is it's out of the team's hands. This is an individual, independent neurologist at the game employed by the league. Now, does the player go in there? I'm fine, get me out there. I'm sure Tua did it, I'm sure, just like he said it was his back after the game, and I'm sure Josh Allen did. Now, if the neurologist at the game clears him of the concussion, is the team supposed to hold him out? Now we're walking a different line here, but I get Dolphin fans, in an uproar over this, but they had the exact same situation with Tua the first time he didn't have a concussion, just like Josh Allen didn't have one. And so what's happened with Tua, though, as you said, his concussions have been so pronounced and on such a national platform that he has become really the picture of concussions in the NFL right now.
Yeah, he has, and it's unfortunate for Tua, and then for the Dolphins, it puts them kind of in a high profile spot, but that's where we're at right now.
I will say one more thing about it. I really don't like being put in the middle of this. The media, like we're supposed to have opinions. Should he continue to play or not to play? We have no information.
Right. And
even if we did, we couldn't read the neurological charts. Really, we, like the player, like the team, are going to the doctors on this, are listening to the decisions being made and assuming that it's with the best health of the player in mind, and he's been cleared by doctors. Okay, now if it ever comes out that no, that wasn't the case, we got a whole different issue. But it seems like everybody's following the right protocol. Now, does the protocol need to be tweaked? Well, it was tweaked after Tua's injury, remember, the first time, and maybe that's the uproar over Josh Allen. But it is a ridiculously violent game. And it'll be interesting to see how Tua plays. Now, I'm sure he won't be running downfield into safeties, but I'm also sure if anybody gets within 2 yards of him, he's going to be unloading the football. And from a health standpoint, I get it. From a football standpoint, it'll be curious how this all plays out.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, David, from the kind of the standpoint of we still don't know much about concussions. There really is still a question with Tua. Did running into Damar Hamlin cause a concussion, or his head hitting the ground after that collision caused the concussion. And the other thing, you talk about the rule changing when Tua got that incident. You remember Teddy Bridgewater up in the Jets game, one
Jets
play,
game, yeah.
they overcompensated. So there's
Yeah.
still so much unknown and so much gray area here, so much ambiguity that it's hard to say.
And another there's liability issues that the league's
Yes,
looking at.
yes,
And this
yes,
is the number one thing
yes.
that they're scared of from PR and liability. And look, I get it. But how you factor all this into a inherently violent game, it's uncomfortable at times.
Yep. And yeah, Matt Newton, I see he brings up the Bridgewater thing here also. Welcome to I Got Game, AJ, New Jersey. That's kind of new. Billy Batson, I see you out there. JD the Great One, I see you out there. Pretty Boy, of course. You know I got you. Hyde, let's move on to our second segment. It's can this team still make the playoffs? And some people have talked to us here in the chat about how the division looks so bad. Hyde, that December-January finish that we're all stressing out about, the Jets, Houston, San Francisco, Cleveland, and the Jets. Well, the Jets are 2-3. You play them twice. You go to Houston, they're 4-1. You probably weren't going to win that one. San Francisco is 2-3. I don't know if you believe in that. Cleveland is 1-4. So really, those 5 games, 4 of those teams now have a losing record. At this point, we know that's going to change. But to me, Hyde, it's always been more about the Dolphins than the opponent. That's how I always look at sports. It's more about you than your opponent. I still see that being the case here. But do you think this has the December-January schedule eased up because of how we look at it now after 5 weeks? How do you view this finish?
Well, I saw something yesterday that strength of schedule in the NFL from here is the Dolphins have the 3rd easiest path. Okay. Now, 11 of the top 14 teams with the easiest schedule the rest of the way were AFC teams, which tells you the AFC hasn't been what anybody expected from a record wise. A lot of Cincinnati's 1-4, Jets 2-3, Dolphins 2-3. Everybody expected New England to be awful. But can they make the play? Of course they can make the playoffs. If they can get back to the team that everybody thought they were back in July, they can get back to the team. Now, they got to clean up a lot of stuff, though. And again, as I said, these are repeating problems. It's not just like, the pre-snap penalty has been a problem one game. It's every game. The special teams has 11 penalties this year.
Right.
Then you throw in the crazy plays they had with the block punt and the field goal snap rolling back. So that's got to get cleaned up. The offense, we know that's got to get cleaned up from have good teams figured out how to stop the Dolphins, the quick strike passing. Or is it just a quarterback situation? I tell you what, the front office decision making's got to get cleaned up too.
Yes.
How you can go down the list. Shaq Barrett over money instead of money. They could basically sign Andrew Van Ginkel. The quarterback room is itself, and it's just not the obvious one of banking on Skylar Thompson when they know they got a fragile starter in Tua, but also the second decision they made when they went out and got Tim Doyle. What if they got Tyler Huntley then and got him into the offense for 3 more weeks? And you saw how much more comfortable Huntley was this second week than his first week when he had basically 4 or 5 practices. A lot has to get cleaned up. Can they make? Yes, they can make the playoffs. 2-3 is not a death knell. No, right. And remember the Bills were 6-6 last year and went on a run and got a home field playoff advantage. So by no means is the season over.
Here's something that Pretty Boy brings up, and I think it relates to this question of can the Dolphins make the playoffs. He says Julian Hill is our repeated problem. LOL. Here, and you know where I'm going with this, Hyde. Julian Hill has all these penalties. Is there corrective action being taken? Like, do you let this guy stay in? Do you need him that much? He's a good blocker, but what is the punitive action? What is the corrective action? What is his incentive to get better? He keeps doing this, and he keeps getting playing time. These are the types of things that will make you miss the playoffs. Not paying attention to detail, letting things like this slide, and it turns a 30-yard run back into a 10-yard loss. Are they making the changes, the necessary changes? We saw from Tennessee to New England, they looked worse. Like, what are they doing in practice? How big an impediment is this to making the playoffs? Because I think that as much as Tua coming back and everything like that, they've got to clean up their act, like kind of like you were saying.
Yeah, and I've been around teams where the coach at this point would make a statement,
Yep.
cut somebody,
Yep.
fire somebody. We saw Tony Sparano fire his special teams coach in after game 4 or 5 when they had an awful game.
Yep.
And I'm not advocating for that. But what I'm saying is usually when problems keep repeating themselves, a statement is made that, okay, we're not going to put up with now. Julian Hill snaps on as an offensive player will reduce this game.
Yes.
But he's still out there in the fourth quarter, as you mentioned, and got it was a questionable holding penalty, but the point is it was called. So I completely agree. This is a team waiting for some harsh statement to be made, and I think Mike needs, the time's probably passed and made it, but you just can't have these problems go at time after time and do nothing about it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just you just don't see any corrective action being taken here. P. Double says this front office has been a joke for 23 years. Greer didn't want a backup quarterback to affect Tua's confidence. Plain and simple. McDaniel doesn't dish out any form of punishment. Period. Again, when we talk about making the playoffs and not making the playoffs, the Greer kind of, he built this. McDaniel had his hand in it. How much are they responsible at this point for guiding this team to the playoffs? It's a players' league, Hyde. And whatever we want to say about Julian Hill and everything, that's, he's got to be better. The coaches can take corrective action, but your players have got to be better. But this team has so much talent, Hyde. There's no excuse for this team not to be in the playoff race in December, but Greer and McDaniel, are their hands still in this, or is this pretty majority on the players at this point of the regular season?
See, I disagree. It's a players' league. It's 50-50. I mean, we go back to Tom Brady. Yeah, he won the Super Bowls and all that, but you look at the start of his career, it was Bill Belichick nurturing him and letting him advance and grow. So to me, the culture setting was Mike McDaniel's way, and he called players teammates. Tua said, "This is our team, not Mike's." I haven't heard stuff like that anywhere in the league.
Yeah.
And now that's either going to be the blessing of the Dolphins, or it's going to be the thing if they don't win, people are going to be talking about. Because the blessing is, okay, he has empowered them and told them, he's said we're partners in all this, and we'll say we started to see how it looked. Tyreek Hill wasn't sounding like a happy partner last week with some of his comments, and so if it goes south, all of a sudden it's the coach and his fault. So, but the larger issue, big issue. Yes, it's McDaniel and Greer. They put together this roster. They're the ones who and Greer. Greer over McDaniel, even though just because he let McDaniel make a lot of decisions. Okay, as he let Flores make decisions, as he let Adam Gase make decisions. And so you can just start with, we go back to the quarterback. How Greer didn't step in and say, we need a real backup quarterback, because if this is our window to win, and we can't. I don't trust Skylar Thompson. No, we might love him. I love him as a third quarterback, But if I'm trusting that you got Andy Dalton, you got Joe Flacco, who they'll
Right.
probably face. I mean, if you want an old veteran, somebody like that. But you had to do better than Skylar Thompson.
Right, right. Tyrod Taylor. I mean, just any that type of quarterback. I agree with you there. By the way, we do have our Furones bonus. It is a pre-taped edition from last night. We will go to that in a second. One more thing here. I would people are talking on here about the win the division and you're in the playoffs. Can that happen? Can they win the division? Do you think it'll probably take, let's just say 11 games, maybe 10 gets you this division title? I know you've done the math. We just went over your math.
Very difficult. Very difficult.
Right. Is the division still a possibility, or are you just looking at playoffs right now? I'm thinking division is still a possibility. I know you can't beat Buffalo, and that's a major issue, but it's still a possibility, I'm thinking.
Yeah, we're 5 games into the season.
Right.
And, there's so much football to be played. You remember the tanking season where they start off 0-5 and
Right.
they look like a minor league college team. And then they came back and they won 5 games. So they basically went 5-6 the rest of the way. So look, so much of this is finding answers on this bye week and starting to look like a real team at times instead of the clown show it's been out there.
Yeah. One more thing. Beast Up the Poet says, can Chris Greer change this philosophy from providing whoever the coach wants to infusing ready-made talent at whatever position and building around that, i.e. Chop over Graham Barton? Graham Barton, the interior lineman from Duke, who's now playing very well. Chop Robinson. Chop is doing what we saw at Penn State, right? He's that good get off time, a lot of win. He wins on the block, a good win rate, but we're not seeing the sacks. How much of this, what we're seeing right now, is bad decisions by I think it's been bad execution of a plan and a bad plan. Are there bad decisions such as this draft here? Chop Robinson over Graham Barton.
Yeah, I'm not ready to. I get Graham Barton's looking really good, and so if you said, "Boy, we could use him on that offensive line," but they don't value the interior of the offensive line. Right. We've heard that. So this gets to their bigger plan now. How many rookies come in as defensive ends, pass rushing defensive ends, and make a mark right away? And this was a team desperate just to fill the position. So I'm not ready to say, oh, what a disaster Chop Robinson is, or he's not going to make it. That's a difficult position to come in and make a mark. I looked up the first round draft picks a year ago as defensive end, and generally the idea was if they got 3.5 sacks over the season. And so, if you were expecting Jalen Phillips, I think, had 8 sacks as a rookie. That told you, okay, he could be special. But everybody was probably expecting too much of Chop Robinson. I had the same question to everybody. 15 tackles at Penn State, that's really not filling up that stat sheet the way you hope. But I'm not ready to say this is, just a bad pick or anything like that.
Yeah. All right, folks, it is time for us to get to one of the top 4 segments of this 4-segment show. It is our Furones bonus. We're bringing it in right now. All right, we are back. We have our regular feature on the show, Dolphins Deep Dive with Perkins. We can't do this without our man, David Furones. We are back for another edition of the Furones Bonus. Oh, the Furones Bonus. I love it, baby. I love it. All right. So, Furones, it is the bye week. And so our big question for the Dolphins is, what is their top priority for this bye week? There's a lot of possibilities, right? Do you want to organize a game plan, especially for quarterback Snoop Huntley? Do you want to incorporate an offensive game plan that has the run game as a major part of it? We know Anthony Weaver is doing pretty good with the defense, right? Do you want to get Snoop and OBJ to kind of wink, wink, throw on their own this week? Do you want to come up with a 2025 quarterback plan for number one, for number two, for your number three quarterback, who they're going to be? What are you thinking the Dolphins should make their top priority for this bye week, David Furones?
Well, I'm looking at a couple of things. It would be great to start to advance with some serious behind-the-scenes work with Tua and his return before that Arizona game, that first one that he's eligible to return so that he can hit the ground running for that week. Now, it is the bye week, and Mike McDaniel did say that Tua is going to be consulting with more neurologists this week. So you don't need to add on anything to his plate. Now, we know they haven't been sending him through the stages of concussion protocol necessarily yet because they know he still has that 4-game minimum to miss while on injured reserve. So they're letting him take care of that and recover. And then they feel pretty confident, it seems, that he will be able to progress through the stages of protocol once he is sent through them. So I don't know how much you can do behind the scenes, but whatever he can handle, just that's the rest of your season is Tua quarterbacking the team, beginning with that Arizona game. Now, you still do have one game left before you get there, which also gives them another week, so you can kind of get that week to get Tua incorporated, get him through the stages of protocol, and then have him go through a full week once he is ready to begin starting. So that's why I wouldn't necessarily start going with overdoing it with the Snoop and OBJ stuff, because really that's just one game. And OBJ, actually, he told us just yesterday in the locker room that he has that chemistry with Snoop because he played with him in Baltimore last year. So you don't need to overdo it between Snoop and the new wide receiver, Odell Beckham Jr. You really don't need to start developing a 2025 quarterback plan right now. You're focused on this season and running with Tua Tagovailoa as your quarterback as he's set to come back off concussion protocol. Anything beyond that, then that's a topic for the offseason because you've got what you've got right now. And same thing with the pre-snap motions and simplifying the offense. I think Mike McDaniel wants to keep his offense the same. I think we saw a lot of Tyler Snoop Huntley grow in this offense and run it better against New England. So I think especially now having 2 weeks, a whole bye week, and then the week of preparation ahead of Indy, that he'll run it well. And aside from everything else, just relax, de-stress, and come back refreshed and ready. I think you're looking at the rest of the season, making sure you're healthy from that perspective, but then also how Tua is going to perform in this offense the rest of the way. While, of course, then you come back and prepare for that one game without him, which would be Snoop Huntley starting at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis.
So let me ask you this, Furones. When Tua comes back, the Dolphins are going to face the same issue. 2 deep safeties, trying to take that deep throw away from Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. How do you address that? Do you address that with a run game? Do you address that with Jonnu Smith? What do you do? And then pick your spots to go deep? What's going to be the strategy? Is there going to be a change of approach, do you think?
Yeah, and that was the other one that I did want to say is developing the run game and committing to it. I think we saw a lot of that this week. So it was good to see Raheem Mostert, Jalen Wright on a Sunday afternoon in Foxborough where you lost Devon Achane to a concussion and that you still were able to run the ball so effectively. Raheem Mostert coming back and Jalen Wright having his best game as an NFL player. So build off that. Maybe in 2 weeks, Devon Achane is able to return, and then you really have your full staple of running back. So that would be great. So keep going to the run game and then have that complement the passing game and open things up for Tua to throw deep to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, how we've seen this team do in the past. And yes, Jonnu Smith plays a role in that as well. So that was another thing. They did add that into the offense, got him incorporated, which was great to see.
Yeah, and I haven't done my video study yet. Shame on me. But I want to see if New England was playing the 2 deep safeties and then they had to bring an 8th man into the box because 41 carries, 193 yards. I would guess they probably played more 8-man fronts than they wanted to. And obviously, if you're the Dolphins, That's what you want, because now you go over the top again with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So I should have come prepared for this, Veronis. I had technical difficulties getting on here, and so I'm stressed out, Veronis. I'm stressed out.
Yeah, we know you to struggle with technology, so we desperately needed producer Sean Pitts to help you with this pre-recorded Veronis bonus.
We did, but that's all good, baby. We made it. We got it done. And Veronis, we will see you next week. All right, so we are back for our final segment here on Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. By the way, Judy Williams has checked in. That's always good. Every time you're on here, that's right.
I recognize that name because you always say that she's good things about me. That's what I like.
That's right. She says David Furones is doing an epic impersonation of Dave Hyde, or Dave Hyde is doing an epic impersonation of David Furones. So there you go, man. There you go. All right, Hyde, we are going to ask here, what should be the Dolphins' 2025 quarterback plan for next year? And here's what I say, that look, some people are saying, let me say this. We know Tua is going to be the starter. I'm assuming that Tua is the starter. What are you really doing at QB2, QB3? You're back up on your third team. There have been some people saying that the Dolphins need to draft a quarterback in the first round, that Tua is injury prone. You don't know how long he's going to be there. You don't want to be left out. Get the guy in the first round. I like the veteran backup path. They had it right with Teddy Bridgewater, and we were mentioning, Joe Flacco, Andy Dalton. And the reason being, if you're still trying to win a Super Bowl next year, which I assume you're going to be, and you've got Tyreek and Waddle and Jalen Ramsey and all these veterans, I'm not turning this over to a guy who has never played a down in the NFL. I'm turning this over to a veteran, and a veteran is going to get respect in the locker room and in the huddle way more so than a rookie. Plus, the rookie, you don't know if you're drafting Mitch Trubisky or Josh Rosen. So I think that should be your preferred backup. And then as QB3, well, maybe you draft somebody in the second or third round. But I'm not drafting a first rounder to be my backup when I have Super Bowl aspirations high.
Yeah, I'm not. Here we are, October 9th, and we don't know the draft order. We don't know the quarterbacks, who's going to be available in the draft. So to say they should draft a top quarterback, it's way too early for that. Here's what I'll say: they need to invest in a quarterback and invest heavily, whether it's a veteran, whether it's a rookie. Look, if Josh Allen's sitting there when they're picking at number 7, they should trade up or do whatever to get him. If nobody they like is available, which is usually the case with this franchise. They don't like anybody until they, tank and everything points to they got to take a quarterback. But then you go the veteran route. But here we are, October 9th. I'm not sure I want to lock in and either decision. But all I know is someone's got to protect the organization in a manner they haven't. And it's great. Right. They were super nice to Tua, gave him the nice contract, and then non-threatening quarterback room where nobody is even considered at his level. But if they'd brought Andy Dalton or Joe Flacco or Tyler Huntley, nobody thought those guys were at his level either. So my point is, somebody's got to protect the organization in a manner that they haven't for years.
Pretty Boy says, cough, cough, Sam Darnold me, please, for a backup. Donald Davis says Trey Lance. Peter McDowell, Cam Ward, right in our backyard. Let's be honest, we will be lucky if Tua can last 1 or 2 more seasons, if we're being honest, and I hope his health is okay, but he is very vulnerable now. You're not going to be in position to get Cam Ward, right? Unless things go really bad or unless you pull off a major trade, right? Really, do you think Cam could be first quarterback taken?
Well, it could be. What about Shedeur Sanders?
Yes.
Again, I don't know. We don't know where the Dolphins are picked. We don't know the full quarterback situation. It isn't a super rich
Right.
quarterback year you keep hearing, but you
Right.
hear that a lot in October, and then all of a sudden you get to April and there's 4 quarterbacks or 5, and they're going to be taken in the first round. So, look, here's the problem with Sam Darnold. He's a free agent next year.
Mm-hmm.
And if he keeps playing like this, he's going to command big money, good money. Okay. The Dolphins already have invested a ton in Tua. They don't have another $30 million a year or $40 million to throw into another quarterback.
Yep.
And so, that means Sam Darnold's gone. Now, so basically what you'd be doing is getting, if you go to veteran, getting like the Colts did, and getting Joe Flacco for a year or 2 years, or he played good with the Browns. He played good last Sunday with the Colts, and the Dolphins will get a chance to look at him. But they don't have a lot of money to get to say, okay, we're going to go out and get a star quarterback.
Yeah. And, and I always say Joe Flacco's superpower is he wins road playoff games. And that's what the Dolphins always get, is road playoff games. So that's one reason that I really like him. And plus, he's been on teams with good defenses also. Hyde, Troy says the current GM can't be trusted to make the first-round pick. Evan Langley, the organization is moronic. Greer is like his father before him, horrible. Here's the thing.
We're going the genetic route here.
I know, right? That was kind of unforeseen, but hey. Jorge Garcia says a win is a win, but it bought time. To both Greer and McDaniel, who must be replaced. The point is, a lot of people are getting to the Chris Greer or Chris Greer McDaniel thing when we talk about a backup quarterback plan for next year. Can Chris Greer be trusted with this decision, Dave? I know you're not a big fan. You've been on him, but
that's the question Steve Ross is going to have to make, right? I mean, there's some big. They gave McDaniel the contract extension. Yep. They gave, usually you lock in the GM and the coach together. Now they gave all these players contract extensions when they have to. And I wrote about this in August. This is the most comfortable team that's won nothing.
Right.
Okay. And again, nobody protected the organization here. Everybody is, let's throw money out. Ramsey, he's a good cornerback. He's an important piece to it. Let's extend his contract, make him the richest cornerback when he's already signed for 2 more years. Yep. Question becomes, everybody likes Mike McDaniel. How could you not like him?
Right.
But there's no need to extend his contract at this point, was there? I mean, there'll be ample time to do so. So, when we get to, who's picking the quarterback, and this is Steve Greer's, hasn't made a lot of good decisions in his, going back to 2009. So help me with the math there. 15 years, Perk.
I know Greer always says that 2016 was his first draft, in that first time he was in charge of the draft.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fine. So 9 years.
Yep.
How many people get 9 years when they haven't won a playoff game? Right. That's why I call him GM for life. This is so beyond what's going on in the football field. There's a lot of decisions to be made off it. At least we think there are decisions to be made. I thought there had been the decisions to make last offseason, and I wrote that, and the season before that, and I wrote that, and yet inside the Dolphins, they saw, nope, everybody's comfortable and everybody's good.
Yeah, and Hyde, I'll ask you. I'm gonna give you praise. I'm gonna ask this poll question and give people a chance to think about it. Our poll question on Dolphins.com, on SunSentinel.com is: what do you think of quarterback Tyler Snoop Huntley after 2 starts? Got 4 options here. Number 1, he's a great find. The Dolphins definitely have their backup quarterback. Number 2, he's improving. He might be better than Skylar Thompson. Number 3, not much improvement. The run game helped against the Patriots. Snoop is not much better than Skylar. Number 4, who cares? If it's not Tua, we're in trouble. So that's your 4 options. Go on to sunsentinel.com. Which option do you prefer there, Hyde? Great find. He's improving. Not much improvement. If it's not Tua, we're all in trouble.
Well, I mean, he's improving. He's put in an awful situation.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start there. He comes in 2 weeks of practice, and really not even 2 weeks because he's a backup, and they're pumping Skylar Thompson. They're getting him ready to start his during Huntley's first week here. So he really had, in effect, 1 week of practice with a complex offense, and so he looked really uncomfortable that first game, and surprise, right? And he looked more comfortable this past game, and he played better. It didn't necessarily show it on the scoreboard, but the offense functioned better.
Right.
Some of it wasn't his fault. They have a nice first drive going. Leon Eichenberg gets a holding penalty. They get so that stops, and they get a field goal. Then there were the snap behind the surprise snap that lost 22 yards and took him out of another score. But he is getting more comfortable, and was put in an awful situation. Is he good enough? That's what we're going to see coming up. And hopefully for the Dolphins, it's just one more game because Tua gets back and is healthy the rest of the way. But this is what Mike McDaniel's they're going to have to decide. Are they happy with Tyler Huntley too? Because again, it could 3 or 4 or 5 games could fall to him again this year.
Right. Boy, I really like your point about nobody's looking out for the franchise. Who's minding the store? And Judy Williams says any GM who snickers about the interior offensive line should be automatically fired. Billy Batson says Greer is smirking at the check. That's going to haunt Chris Greer. That line about where me and Mike McDaniel laugh at you guys laughing about the offensive line. Who should be looking out for the store? Is it Tom Garfinkel, the president? Is it Chris Greer? I mean, Mike McDaniel is looking out for himself. He's got to protect himself, just like Brian Flores and Adam Gase and Joe Philbin and every other head coach. You can't worry about the franchise 3 years down the line. You might not be here. President, GM, owner, who should be looking out? Who should be minding the store?
Well, who's the football guy? That's Chris Greer, okay? So it falls on him, just like it fell on him during the tanking years. He should have stepped in and said, we need to get Flores, and Steve Ross should have backed him. We're going to play Josh Rosen the rest of the year because Ryan Fitzpatrick's too good. We'll say we need to see if Josh Rosen can be any good because he's a young quarterback. We would have lost every game, and that would have. But again, if you're going to, that's going ancient history, obviously. But the point is, there's a track record here of no real football leadership inside the organization. And to me, it falls on the general manager or the vice president of football in Mike Tannenbaum's case, when Greer ran the drafts, but Tannenbaum ran the bigger picture. And that's what Chris Greer's hired for. And you just get, he's going along with all this, not saying the interior of the football line matters. And I get Tua saying, hey, I'm going to get rid of the ball so quickly it doesn't matter. Okay, but what happens if Tua's hurt? Right. And you need to help out the backup quarterback. And if he had said, look, our philosophy is we're not going to invest heavily in guard play. Okay, that's different than saying we don't care about the interior of the offensive line and chuckling about it. Because I do think you can create guards. You can mold good athletes and decent players into good guards, and you don't have to invest heavily in them. But that's completely different than what he said.
Here's the other thing, Hyde, that you've hit on that I've talked about that I think is really important when you say it's the most comfortable environment without winning anything. And, I know you're probably over 30 years in pro locker rooms. I'm coming up on 30 in pro locker rooms. I've never seen an environment like this where nobody is worried about job safety. There's usually kind of like a little edge, right? That you're just kind of worried that, they saw something in film or I'm on edge. These jobs aren't gifted to you. This locker room, everybody is so comfortable. And I did a story last week, a column, saying that I like this Dolphins team, but I worry about their motivations because I think that they celebrated those contract extensions way too much. And they talk about being the number one offense way too much. and they talk about Tua leading the league in passing yards and passer rating, and Tyreek leading the league in receiving. You haven't won anything, but they wear these as such badges of honor that it worries me. And I've never been around a team like this ever, from the Heat to the old school Texas Rangers, just previous Dolphins teams, where there's such I don't even want to say entitlement, but just the priorities are just so short-sighted and misplaced to me. I was talking to a player when I was doing this column about their motivations, and I said, I'm thinking about writing this column, and I worry that this team's motivations are kind of misplaced. And I said, I think that this team celebrated the contract extensions a little too much. And this player, who's a reasonable player, looked at me like I was crazy, Hyde, and he goes, they're just celebrating their accomplishments. Just like, oh my goodness. But you made such a big deal about it. And I don't get that. When you talk about not a winning culture, like you remember when the Heat, Dwayne's rookie year, and they have Dwayne Wade, and it's Caron Butler and Lamar Odom, and it's this plucky can-do team, and then they make the trade for Shaq the next year, and it shifts to a business-like attitude. Like, we are here to win a title. And, Shaq is the biggest clown of all of them. He's always playing around, but that attitude shifted. And I talk about that Huberdeau trade that the Panthers made. I think this franchise needs an attitude shift, Hyde.
Well, maybe the start will shift the attitude. Maybe it made them a lot more humble, because I saw it at the end of last year where, the anecdotal stories like Tyreek Hill being after the last game where they just were awful against Kansas City in the playoffs. He said, we surprised people this year. And I'm thinking, wait, you lost you didn't win a playoff game. That's not. But what he's saying was, we had some huge games on offense. Boy, weren't we fun? And they did have fun games on offense at times last year. But that's how they saw themselves. They saw themselves as that. And we heard constantly this training camp. I heard back-to-back players. I can't remember, but I remember turning to, maybe it was you, and writing it down, that they said, we're doing things on offense nobody's done before. And I get what they're saying, the cheat motion, the quick strikes, and all that. But the larger point is they were 1-6 against playoff teams. They were averaging 15 points against playoff teams.
Right.
So they racked up the 70 points against that. That was a fun day. They had some fun days, but and I use this in a column, that there's an unearned arrogance around this team.
Yes. That
leaves me very uncomfortable about it. Now maybe they're being slapped back to reality with the start and the questions. We'll see. We'll see where it goes from here.
And I think the perfect metaphor for the McDaniel era is the 2 weeks of, you beat Denver 70-20, which everybody remembers, and that's the narrative around the team. But the next week you go to Buffalo and get crushed 48-20. And to me, that's the bigger narrative around the team. You can't win on the road. You can't beat the good teams. And when your offense needs to show up, they score 20 points. That's what needs to change with this team. And I just think that 2 weeks, the back-to-back, everybody remembers the 70 points. But to me, the more important thing was the next week when you go to Buffalo to lose. That's what I hope changes with this team.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this as the show's going on. How come you're so clear and my picture's so fuzzy? Do I need to clean my lens here or something like that? Maybe I have a discipline problem too. I'm completely with you on that, Perk, and I think the celebration got ahead of the reality.
Right.
They did do some interesting things, and Mike McDaniel is very creative on offense.
Yep.
But you still need some basic fundamental football components: winning on the line, physical play, and discipline. And the Dolphins, Mike McDaniel is a very progressive thinker. And look, the NFL is trying to figure out how to do training camp now. Everybody is reinventing it, but they were rotating 4 and 5 guys every day who had the day off. And I called around to other national writers to see what was going on because I'm thinking, well, maybe this is what's going on now. And they said they never heard of that stuff. And again, it's good to ride the envelope of progressive thinking, but it has to be the right thing that your team needs. And this team, as you've seen in the first 5 weeks, needs, some of the whip to be the cracked
Yep.
whip, or something to get their attention to manage the details of a team game.
Yeah, we'll end with this. Hi, Serge St. Pro. A few things here. Serge St. Pro. Do you hear a bit of McDaniel in the players? Rob, McDaniel has to instill that right attitude. No one else. Starting meetings at 24 past the hour should send a message. As a matter of fact, I think that's going to be 25 past the hour next year. I know that's a terrible thing to say, isn't it? Let's see. Billy Batson says the fun time game. Matt Newton says the Dolphins lead the league in creative end zone sellies. And really what a lot of people are getting around to here is they do need some old school discipline. Somebody has a Flores. Oh, Judy Williams says we need a hard ass like Flores, someone like Vrabel. Does this change? Does Mike McDaniel need an attitude change, or does this team need a new voice that provides an attitude change?
Well, I'm not ready to say they need a new voice, but I do think been around, and teams do reflect the coach's personality.
Yep.
You look at Brian Flores, that was a really tough team. No sense of humor around that team at all. And so I appreciate Mike McDaniel having fun. And on the other hand, they aren't here to go to Disneyland and then get snow cones and all that. So I think while Flores could have loosened up and had a little better human relation, as we all know, with people, that was a super tough team. This one is a talented team, much more talented team. It just needs some discipline, and again, I think it reflects, the head coach and maybe his assistants needs some assistants to be hard asses if he's not going to be it. But they do need some of that.
Yep, they do. All right, that's going to do it for this week. Look, I'm optimistic about the Dolphins overall staying afloat and staying in the playoff race. And I think Tua comes back October 27th against Arizona, and they're in this thing in December. And after that, we'll see what happens. But I do think that there is some room for a little bit of optimism here, folks, a little bit of optimism. We'll see how it plays out. That's Dave Hyde. I'm Chris Perkins. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next week on SunSentinel.com.